625, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. It is time for Legally Served. It is time to welcome in attorney Franz Borghardt, as we do at this time every Wednesday. Franz, good morning.
Good morning, people. How are you guys doing?
Doing very, very well. We're going to get into your court TV stuff a little bit later on.
I mean, if you want to talk about me being on court TV again,
no, I absolutely want to talk about you being. No, not again. It's for the next one. It's for the next one. I want the preview.
I think it's
my audience deserves to peek behind the curtain.
Well, yeah, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We got other fish to fry here.
Well, yeah,
other pastors to fry.
So the headline reads: "Fight for freedom or public safety risk? Supreme Court hears case of pastor who defied COVID rules." Is there a third column that says all of the above?
So here's my thing. It's kind of hard to get. I appreciate fighting for your constitutional rights. I appreciate that. I understand that. But when you're talking about freedom fighting for a misdemeanor, it's kind of like, you know, they're never going to make a movie about Pastor Spell. It's just not freedom fighting, you know. Like there won't be Pastor Spell Unchained.
No. It's and yeah. There is a big gap between an ankle bracelet and martyrdom.
Did he ever agree to be on your show, by the way?
No. What he did
not to Salt Bay into the.
He agreed to be on my show and then no-showed and showed up at the exact same time on with Dr. Phil. I think it was Dr. Phil.
Well, you gotta understand.
I got big-footed by Dr. Phil. It happens.
Right, but
it happens.
But his marketing folks, his PR folks, didn't circle back and say, "Hey, we're sorry."
I'm guessing there's. Yeah, I could not get an answer after that, and gave up after about 2 weeks.
I wouldn't do you like that.
Yes, and thank you. 2 years after the first fearful days of the COVID pandemic, Reverend Tony Spell asked the Louisiana Supreme Court on Tuesday to throw out criminal charges over his defiance of Governor John Bel Edwards' early emergency restrictions. Spell argues Edwards violated his freedom of religion by ordering the halt of all large public gatherings, including his church services, but attorneys for Edwards and the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney Hilda Moore argued Spell willfully broke rules that hundreds of thousands of other Louisiana residents and churches found a way to follow for months.
So to be clear, we're not talking about the criminal case where he almost ran over somebody with a bus.
No, this has nothing to do with the...
I'm not... Am I sprinkling that in? I kind of just sprinkled that in there.
Well, I'm glad you did because it needs to be talked about.
Right.
Everything he was actually punished for had to do with that.
Right. This is just the question of the church services during the pandemic when there was executive orders in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, fast forward 2 years later, I have questions, and I've actually spent some time thinking about this one. I mean, normally you're just getting really good legal expertise on the cuff, just firing bullets, man. Do we view the world differently now? 2 years later, are we looking back and are we saying, hey, everybody was doing the best they could in the moment? Or do we look back and say, man, we were being ridiculous back then?
Okay, can the answer be all of the above there, too?
Yes. I mean, it's kind of like the weather, right? We shut down everything, and if it's a whole bunch of tornadoes, then we made the right call.
Yes.
If it's not a tornado and the sun comes out, oh, we're a bunch of wusses. Oh, I can't believe we shut down government for this. Hindsight's 2020, right?
Absolutely.
So part of what we're dealing with in this Supreme Court case is how we view what happened legally through the lens of today versus what was going on then.
Mm-hmm.
And what was going on then was a lot of folks, and this is not rule of law, this is just background, a lot of folks were doing the best they could. You know, we were doing executive orders, and it wasn't, I think this is what is key, it wasn't you can't have church. What was it?
You can't have church in person.
Can't have church in person. You have to follow some rules.
Everybody else figured out a way to do it except for him.
Right. Well, and let's just be honest. Regardless of my personal feelings with regard to the Reverend Pastor Spell, it was about defiance, right? It was about he was taking a stand. It wasn't about God. It was about defiance.
During Prohibition, speakeasies were called speakeasies because you spoke easy. They were not blasted out over the top. Like if he wanted to have church and he told his parishioners, "You guys come to church and everything will be cool," and they went to church and they went back home again, none of this would have happened.
Right.
His tactic was to make sure everybody knew he was doing what he was doing the way he was doing it, and that's where one of the bigger issues comes into play.
So the Louisiana Supreme Court is reviewing all this, and they have the power to say, no, your rights were violated, your constitutional rights were violated, and throw out a whole bunch of stuff. Or they can say, hey, dude, you're not a martyr. You violate some law, and then he'll take it up higher, I would suspect. So it's just not.
Oh, whoa, so much to unpack from there.
Okay.
We got to take a break for news, traffic, weather. I understand Jake was getting a call about some of that traffic as well. So we will have you updated on the back end of that, and Legally Served with attorney Franz Borghardt will continue as well. We're going to talk about what are your constitutional rights. Do you have the benefit of hindsight in court, and a whole lot more as we continue to unpack this case and maybe talk about Franz on TV. That's coming up right after this on Talk 107.3. So do you have the benefit of hindsight? Can you look back and say, Your Honor, we held church at all this time, and my parishioners died at a lower rate than the rest of the populace?
So it's all about, for this, it's all about the constitutional First Amendment right. Freedom of religion and all that. And, the kitchen sink can go into the argument. If you read the article, one of the questions they had was were there other parishioners? Did y'all single him out or were there parishioners arrested? Which really, candidly, has nothing to do with anything. Like, if they don't arrest the other congregants, that's fine.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So he called to say that traffic's at a standstill southbound on 110 from Memorial to the Governor's Mansion.
Okay.
Am I supposed to tell anybody that?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't get it to Ashley. We'll listen to Ashley's report in a second, and hopefully she'll have it. There were 3 tornadoes in New Orleans? And a crawfish they caught in Araby. We'll listen to Ashley's report and then go right to my mic. You said 110 southbound from Memorial Stadium down to the Governor's Mansion? Okay.
Is it Kevin Gallagher?
You want me to go, after traffic?
Right after traffic, before you hit. Oh, is the spots built into it?
Yeah, but I can hit pause.
Okay, yeah, pause.
But if they do cover it, then we're good.
Yes. Yes.
It sounds like Kevin Gallagher.
Okay, so this got uploaded at 6:22. There's a likelihood that it didn't.
I'm sorry, say again?
The traffic itself got uploaded at 6:22, so there's a likelihood it didn't. Got that call.
She's got it. Ashley's got it. It's lit up on the screen. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. That's not it. There it is. All right. Yeah. Okay, I'm looking at the accident right now. Yeah, come to me then. Quick addendum to the traffic that was about 5 minutes behind. Just the pace of the morning, not keeping up with what's going on the roads. I-110 southbound, going to be slow going right now, if not stop and go, from Memorial Stadium up to the Governor's Mansion curve, the two curves. I don't know if that's an accident or road work that's going on, but we are looking at stop and go traffic, and it looks like one lane is open. So if you're coming in on I-110 southbound, you're going to see delays. Also, we're seeing some early delays on 12 westbound past Airline. Yeah, all right.
Don't be a victim twice.
Who this is?
Oh, dude, I'm so excited. Going on a little spiritual quest in the desert. It's going to be an awesome vacay.
Oh, wow. Oh, God. Oh, snap. That's funny. Did you see the bottom picture and stuff?
Yeah, I saw the bottom pictures.
Okay.
His fashion sometimes is
Questionable. To highly questionable.
So the dude, the coach, that has filed a civil suit against the NFL for hiring practices, what's his name? There's a rule, right, that you have
The Rooney Rule?
The Rooney Rule.
Yeah.
You just have to consider. You don't have to
The rule is a joke. The rule is an absolute joke. It says you have to have, you know what, I'll say it. The rule says you have to have a token black. That's basically what
on
it is.
the squad on the
You have to interview somebody. You don't have to consider that you just have to interview somebody. It's nothing to do with reality. The problem is you can't tell people who they have to hire. And to me, that's not a problem at all, because I wouldn't want to be told who I have to hire if I owned a team. There's no solution to it. There's no solution whatsoever. But, yeah, the way the rule is written is about as dumb as it can be. All right, my thing's just not going to work today. Clinton says he clicks on the link and it goes straight to yesterday's coverage. All right, we're just going to have issues all morning long. Since most of y'all are getting it, we're going to leave it. Legally Served with attorney Franz Borghardt, rolling right along as part of Mornings with Brian Haldane. We're talking about Pastor Spell heading up in front of the state Supreme Court to the Louisiana Supreme Court. He was there yesterday asking the court to throw out criminal charges over his defiance of Governor John Bel Edwards' early emergency restrictions. Now, there is a possible problem with precedent setting here if they find in favor of Pastor Spell. We'll get to that in a minute. When you're in front of the court, can you argue that everything was cool after the fact? Can hindsight play in your favor?
You can argue anything before the court. They do most of the steering, though, of the boat because they get to ask you questions. Now understand, both sides have submitted briefs in support of their positions and in opposition to the other position. A lot of things have happened before we get to oral arguments with the Supreme Court. Once you get to the Supreme Court, you're really just fine-tuning positions. And the justices are also trying to make a record so that they can utilize that record in their decision. One of the questions, and from the article, the Advocate article that I read, one of the questions was, were y'all singling this guy out?
Right.
Because there wasn't exactly a lot of arrests for what Pastor Spell got arrested for. But then the flip side is who was doing what he was doing? Who was flagrantly violating the law like he was flagrantly violating the law?
Firehouse Barbecue in Denham?
Yeah. He ate there too, didn't he?
Yeah.
He ate there and
Yeah, and put
whatever
out a
happened
press
to
release about
whatever
it.
happened to Firehouse Barbecue?
I don't know. They were bursting at the seams during COVID.
So, to your question, yeah, you can argue whatever you want to. The sun was in my eyes. You can argue that if you want to. In this case, the justices wanted to know why. Was he too public for y'all? That was what I think Justice Kane wrote. Was he too public for y'all?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no. It was just that he was violating the law. And in fact, the other piece to this is, if you recall, there were negotiations going on behind the scenes.
Oh,
If I'm
yes.
not mistaken, there were negotiations. His arrest seemed, from the outside looking in, I wasn't involved in the case. He has competent attorneys. He didn't hire this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't involved. But it looked from the outside going in that this was not just a, hey, you're defiant, we're just going to arrest you. It seemed like there was more to it. There seemed like there was some serious negotiations, and basically he was like, no, I'm doing what I want to do.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know the ins and outs of those negotiations. For all we know, that they could have offered to buy them a big old tent, hold services outside. We don't even know.
Tent and a Big Mac.
You know what, though? You want to talk about a rallying point? That would have been a nice little compromise right there, and everybody would have been on board. I don't know if that was ever offered or not, but we don't know the behind the scenes of the negotiations. But what we do know is there was not an opportunity that was missed to get in front of a camera. There was not an opportunity that was missed to declare how he was being persecuted.
Well, some churches were live streaming. Some churches,
a lot of them were. Look,
which
I did Zoom church for quite some time, or not Zoom church, but just a live stream church.
You are a much more religious human being than I am. I'm spiritual.
I'm working on you, man. Let's get there.
As F.
Yeah.
But
the fact that you would use that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I get it. People in a time of crisis, people want to be able to reach out to their religious organizations, their churches, their religious leaders, and get comfort, man. I understand that.
Yes, but also that comfort needs to come in the form of leadership.
Right.
That comfort needs to come in the form of, hey, everybody, let's do the right thing here. I know what feels good. It feels good for all of us to get together, but right now, maybe not so much. Right now, maybe we all need to stay home for a minute, do this the right way, go along to get along for just a minute.
Well, that doesn't get you on Dr. Phil, Brian.
Correct. And it's all going to come back around to that. And can that play against the pastor, not so much about his constitutional rights, but about what Pandora's box it opens to capitulate to the squeaky wheel getting the grease here?
So, number one, your constitutional rights are not absolute. Your religious rights your freedom of religion cannot hurt other human beings. So that's number one. Does the government have a interest in restricting your rights in this case? I think there's a good argument for, look, we were trying to stop the spread of a global pandemic. We were trying to minimize, people were dying, people were getting sick, businesses are being shut down. I think that the government has a good straight-faced argument for these executive orders were not overly cumbersome, they were not unreasonable, and they were in the public's interest.
But they were also proven out to be wrong after the fact.
Well, I mean,
6 feet between people squeezed down to 3 feet. Unless you were in a classroom that couldn't fit, then it was 1.5 feet. That 25% of people got bumped up to 50% of people, got bumped up to 100% of people, got bumped up to whatever based off of where we were in each individual
so
search.
If you're the government, if you're the governor, and more to the point, if you're the state of Louisiana, the argument would be, well, I'm relying on experts.
Yes.
I'm relying on doctors and experts that are giving mandates. I'm relying on the CDC. I'm relying on all these people that have a lot more science under their belts than Pastor Spell. And look, there are some folks that believe that vaccines are the devil. There's some folks that will not get vaxxed. And look, that's okay. The issue with this case, that's okay for them. Doesn't mean I'm not vaxxing my kid up.
Right.
But the thing is, it's when you're doing things in defiance of the law that could put people in harm's way. And that is part of the argument it was the scope of his defiance, right? Now, this all played out with misdemeanor arrests.
Yeah.
Bigger picture, this is house money for him. He's a pastor of a church. They're not saying, "Ooh, you got these misdemeanor convictions. We're not going to let you be a pastor of the church anymore." It doubled his street credit, right?
Which is sad, but okay.
It's like being on court TV. So, see what I did there?
I do.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's he's playing with house money right now. And like I said at the beginning of the segment, if the Supreme Court here doesn't do what he wants, he'll just take it up higher. He will ride this gravy train, Brian Haldane, until the gravy train don't ride.
Yeah, until cameras stop showing up. I get that. My thing is, if the Supreme Court rules in his favor, if anybody rules in his favor on the way up, what we're going to see is every other church in the state needs to turn around and sue as well, because that Pandora's box has been open, that if Pastor Spell's rights were shut down, so was every other church's rights shut down. And, oh, by the way, so was every other business. So what seemed to be reasonable precautions at the time, reasonable to some of us, what seemed to be reasonable at the time, in hindsight, proved to not make a heck of a lot of difference, because we got through the second, third, fourth, and fifth surges without having to sit out of church. If Pastor Spell is in the right, everyone else was wronged.
No doubt. But the issue is this. Who else was wronged such that they were arrested? What other church leaders?
Nobody else was arrested because everybody else played along.
Father Cleo at Mercy.
Okay.
Our church, they're not arresting Father Cleo, right?
Yeah, Father Cleo is also smart enough to recognize a global pandemic.
Right. Father Cleo doesn't like the feel of metal handcuffs on his wrists. So, stop.
Nope. Franz had a caller off the air ask a question that I've been trying to pose, but I don't think I've been posing it the right way. Jason called in and said, does the press influence the court's decision here?
Yes. So the press is perceived politics, right? The press, politicians, elected officials, whether it's the district attorney, whether it's Supreme Court justices, they care what's in the press, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether they admit it or not, they may not claim that they make decisions based on PR and press and whatnot, but they're elected officials.
Okay.
And so is it possible that the press's coverage of all this motivates their decision making? Well, yeah. To what degree? I don't know.
Okay, but from the press's perspective, they're covering it because it's a story, and they're covering it because this pastor's jumping up and down saying, "You're not going to stop me from having church." When every other church shut down or went virtual, he said absolutely not, which is why he got the coverage he got.
So if I were spinning it, it's, do you not care about the Constitution? Do you not care about arguably one of the most important constitutional amendments, which deals with
1,000%. I agree.
Which deals with your relationship with God. You don't care about that?
So,
I don't want you.
And when you pray, go to the innermost room of your house and close the door.
Right.
Don't.
So the spinning is what's your constituency? If your constituency is not a conservative, a right wing conservative pocket, then you're going to be like, well, no, that's you're violating other people's constitutional rights because you're putting their lives in harm's way.
If this did not pass muster to suspend church for a minute, no, by the way, on the other side of this equation, the court can say, look, every other church that shut down, they got back to it soon after, and all is right with the world.
So remember, he's arguing that he should not be charged with a crime, right? It's about the executive order crime, right? It's not, again, just so the record's clear, this is not him almost running over somebody with a bus.
No, him almost running someone.
I don't know why I chuckle every time I say that because it's a pastor almost running over somebody with the bus.
Do we still have to say allegedly with that?
I saw the video.
I saw the video.
It looked like it. Now, whether or not
was weak. It was a weak attempt to run someone over with a bus.
It was a half measure.
Okay.
No more half measures, Pastor Spell.
I mean, he honked.
Yeah. Did he honk?
I don't know. It was no audio on the video.
So bad. But, so this is about the executive order and having services during the pandemic, right?
Right.
Which is ultimately what he was charged with.
Right.
So does the press come into play with this? Yes. And look, I've admitted to you that one of the things I dislike about talking about this guy is I'm part of the problem by talking about this
Oh,
guy. Right?
you know, completely agree.
right.
But it does need to be hashed out because we're going to have comps in the future. There's
Yeah.
going to be something that happens in the future where this is relied on. And by the way, I asked about hindsight earlier. What about hindsight from the state's side as well to say, don't forget, the argument at the time was they're taking away your religious freedom. And if they could take it away for a week, they could take it away for a month. And if they could take it away for a month, they could take it away for the rest of our lives. And that's just the first of the freedoms that's going to go away. The state can turn around and say, no, everything went back to normal.
So the better argument for the state might be no one is above the law. And this guy tried to be above the law, which is why we arrested him. And we didn't arrest him for attempted murder, because that would have been the outlandish charge, right? Your actions are trying to kill people. We're going to arrest you for attempted. We arrested him for violation of a protective order.
Mm-hmm.
That's the long and short of it.
You want to crystal ball it? How you think it plays out?
I think the Supreme Court ultimately says no. Basically says no. Your constitutional rights were not violated, and it stands, because I think ultimately at the end of the day, the restrictions were not so cumbersome, and the state had a genuine interest in doing what it did. There was a genuine public health, public safety interest, and that should be enough, I think, to cover this. Now, that all being said, stranger things have happened. You know, he's a martyr either way, right? He died. He died
diluted
for the,
word at this point.
Yeah,
he didn't die. He wore an ankle bracelet for a minute and showed it off on Channel 2.
The struggle. The struggle.
The struggle is real. Nice socks, by the way.
Yeah.
You're going to be on Court TV again tomorrow.
Yeah. So remember, the Court TV, they track national cases, and they remember from last week I told you they send me a list of these are the things we may talk about, but they don't send me that list until Wednesday evening, and then they send a new list Thursday. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, I had a list of things. There was a doctor in Ohio that's accused of basically killing a bunch of patients with pain medicine. There was Smollett. There was all these different.
We got to talk about that doctor in Ohio at some point.
Oh yeah,
Kevorkian 2.0.
That is how it's being framed. But they'll send you everything. And last week or 2 weeks ago, it was by the way, last minute it's sentencing for Smollett. There is an NBA case where an NBA basketball player. Or somebody, I haven't really been tracking. You can hear me.
Yeah.
But there's some kind of murder, something involved in that. But
a basketball player, is this the NBA young boy thing?
No, that's a different.
Okay.
That's a different thing we'll be talking about in about 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I can. You know, I occasionally get hired to represent folks.
That would be.
He has counsel.
Really big.
He has counsel, so it would be somebody else in the mix. So, yeah. So next week,
mm-hmm.
I want to apologize to the listeners in advance. Next week, I will not be in studio. I apologize to all the listeners, the people watching on YouTube. I'm going to be in Arizona. God's country.
You going to Arizona?
Sweat Lodge. Desert.
You are not.
Desert, naked Indian, whole 9 yards.
First of all, Native American, but secondly...
Spiritual quest. A spiritual vision quest, if you will. I'm going to find that my spirit animal is a cockroach or something like that.
Hey, we don't need to know
centipede.
That. Whatever's out in Arizona.
I've wanted to go to Sedona for a couple of years now. There is some great nature out there. There's some great hiking, and it is a spiritual place. So I'm, all joking aside, I'm in touch with that facet of my inner being.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, my God doesn't. I mean, my conduit to God is not Pastor Spell.
No, it's on Marquette.
Cleo.
Yes.
So anyway,
you drive to Arizona. I'll drive to Mid-City.
So part of a good journey is part of the good trip is the journey, right?
Oh yeah.
A pilgrimage is about getting there. So
that's it. Well, Miley Cyrus said it's the climb.
That's right.
He's Franz Borghardt. We do legally served every week. Here comes CBS News.